Four men from Birmingham have been jailed for a combined total of more than 20 years for an attempted armed robbery of a Rolex watch. Andrew James was in a pub in Birmingham the early hours of the 11th of February last year as he spied on his victim wearing a Rolex watch. He contacted his pal Abdoulie Anderson, who in company with Daneton Bailey-Warren and Enrico Hendricks approached the man as he was leaving and demanded the watch. He refused and was threatened with a firearm. As security at the pub intervened, a scuffle broke out and a shot was fired, injuring a security guard. Two others were injured in the aftermath and police were called. As firearms officers arrived, Andrew James was detained, leaving the scene and found to be in possession of a second firearm. As witness statements were taken, CCTV trawls were undertaken to identify the three others who made off in a stolen Peugeot. The vehicle was tracked in reverse and the occupants were caught on CCTV entering a club early the same evening. Facial recognition then helped officers identify the offenders. James is 42, Bailey-Warren, who's 21, Anderson, who's 21, and Hendricks, who's 25, stood trial at Birmingham Crown Court in August, but all four pleaded guilty to attempted robbery on the second day. James also pleaded guilty to possession of a firearm and cannabis, whilst Anderson also admitted possession of a firearm with intent to cause fear of violence and wounding. Andrew James and Abdoulie Anderson were each jailed to 6 years and 6 months, and Daneton Bailey-Warren and Enrico Hendricks were each sentenced to 3 years and 11 months for their part in the attempted robbery. Detective Sergeant Lucy Mooney from the Force's Major Crime Team said, "Fortunately, the bullet which hit the security guard in his ankle went straight through and he has recovered from his ordeal. The other two injured also did not suffer any long-term injuries. The victim, although not injured, was threatened with a firearm and I do not underestimate the fear he felt. We are determined to place anyone in possession of a firearm before the courts and seize the weapons which have no place on our streets." Said Operation Target sees us taking a defiant stand against a range of serious and organised crime offences, from drug dealing and burglary to cybercrime and fraud. A County Lines drugs gang operating in Dudley have been jailed for a combined total of more than 20 years. Shahoon Kurban, Sajjad Hussain, Michael Hill and Stacey Beck had all been selling heroin and crack to known drug users in Dudley. They were operating a line which went by the name of the H-Line, and the gang would send bulk text messages to potential buyers advertising drugs for sale. Between March and December 2022, the phone number that they were using sent out around 27,000 text messages. As part of their investigations, officers from the County Lines Task Force carried out CCTV and mobile phone inquiries and identified Kurban, Brian, Hill and Hussain. In December 2022, officers executed warrants at the home addresses of all four drugs gang members where they seized mobile phones, cash and drugs. They were all arrested and subsequently charged with conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. Last month, Hussain from Dudley was found guilty at an early hearing and was jailed for 9 years. You got Brian and Hill. They admitted charges and jailed for 4 years each, and just the other day, Kurban was jailed for 9 years and 7 months. Detective Constable Thomas Rees, who led the investigation, said this is a significant victory in our fight against drug trafficking. After months of relentless investigation, we've successfully dismantled a complex drugs ring that has been creating bare problems in our community, and the operations not only highlights the dedication and teamwork, but also underscores our commitment to keeping our streets safe. We will continue to work tirelessly to hold those who exploit and harm our neighbourhoods with these vile drugs that they are putting into our communities. So guys, this is a new story coming from Dudley Ways, where a gang has been jailed for a combined total of more than 20 years. So in this next news story, two baby-faced schoolboys who murdered a 14-year-old air cadet after he was exploited into dealing drugs have today been unmasked by a judge. Kyle Damodi was also just 14 when he stabbed his former friend Nathaniel Sharney in the neck following a row over drugs. He was last month given a life sentence after being convicted of his murder alongside Trey Stewart Gale, who was only 13 and armed with a screwdriver. After Damodi produced a knife, Stewart Gale told him to do it, the trial heard. Following an application by the media, The judge lifted a ban on publishing their names, saying there was a substantial public interest in understanding how such young children could commit a fatal knife attack. Mr. Justice Ellen Bogan previously said that sadly it is no longer shocking for such a young child to be murdered by boys of his age. Detectives have previously revealed how Nathaniel's tragic death last September illustrated how easily children from loving, supportive families can be sucked into a deadly inner-city underworld. Nathaniel's devastated parents, who police say could not have known about his brief and tragic foray into a world of criminal gangs, have called for a total ban on carrying knives in our streets and stiffer sentences. They have urged schools to inform parents about concerns that their children were involved in crime so they could take responsibility for keeping them out of trouble. So, the victim was a pupil at Manchester's Academy, and Nathaniel took pride in his role as an air cadet, shining his shoes and ironing his shirt to make sure he looked the part. A photograph released by his parents showed his delight after celebrating his 14th birthday with a card celebrating his amazing journey through life that the family envisaged for him. But unbeknown to them, he had been sucked into the criminal underworld of dealing drugs in North Manchester. On the day of his killing, which was the 15th of September last year, Stuart Gale had stolen cannabis from a friend of Nathaniel. Nathaniel was said in court to have viewed himself as a hard kid who was interested in a reputation that matched that. He wanted to be a gangster, and he was determined to recover the drugs. An arrangement was made for a one-on-one at a shopping precinct to sort things out. Stuart Gale, armed with a screwdriver, was accompanied by Demody, who had been friends with Nathaniel before they fell out. During the confrontation, unarmed Nathaniel punched Demody, who then produced a knife and stabbed him in the neck. Stuart Gale told Demody to do it after he had produced the weapon. Nathaniel was seen clutching his neck after being knifed before collapsing in the square. His devastated friends lied to police that it had been an argument about money, but detectives recovered Snapchat messages which revealed the true story, and it was about drugs. After both were convicted of murder following a trial at Manchester Crown Court, the pair were given life sentences. Demody will serve a minimum of 13 years in custody, while Stuart Gale will have to serve a minimum of 10. Ruling that the media could name them, High Court Justice Mrs. Justice Ellen Bogan said the public wished to know the identities of those who commit such a serious offence in seeking to understand how it is that children of this young age can do this kind of stuff. Said knife crime in general and the circumstances of this particular case are matters of public interest. When she sentenced them, the judge said that a boy of his age should have met his death by boys of a similar age is a tragedy. Sadly, it is no longer shocking. Paying tribute at the time, the victim's parents said Nathaniel will be missed for the many reasons. He was such a courageous young boy, charming with a great sense of humour, loving and caring, who loved jokes and laughs, and he was seen inspired, seeing comedy for the first time. Until his death, Nathaniel was never angry or mad at anyone. When he was bored, he would just crack a joke and everyone would just burst into instant laughter, whether it was at home or in school or in the playground. Describing the life-changing impact of losing their son in such a traumatic way, they added, "It's like a dream, and that when we wake up, Nathaniel will be in his room sleeping." Among their demands are a total ban of carrying knives in our streets, insisting parents take responsibility for ensuring children don't carry knives, and requiring schools to disclose any concerns. After the sentencing, the lead detective on the case, Detective Chief Inspector Gina Brennan of Great Manchester Police, revealed that the dealer who provided Nathaniel with the drugs has since been locked up for drugs offences. She said investigators had established that Nathaniel had only been involved in drug dealing for about 2 weeks before he was murdered, with messages showing that he had been told he could move on to selling cocaine if he did well with cannabis. She said that street-level exploitation, I would say, which has led to Nathaniel's murder. Had the drugs not been stolen, the fight would never have taken place. That person has been the catalyst for Nathaniel's murder, and his parents would say that, and he has now been locked up for a long time. The ECI Brennan claimed Nathaniel's friends were victims of exploitation, saying that they don't have the skills to know otherwise. They said they might think it's cool, but they're not. They're just acting for someone else and being exploited, and it happens every day on the streets of inner cities of the UK, and that is why children start to carry knives.